there a motion to open tonight's meeting? Trustee Taylor, second trustee Patino, all in favor. Meeting is hereby open. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could just stay standing for a minute, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the recent death of Benny Rodriguez, who was instrumental, along with his wife, with the food pantry. I mean, as a couple, they really worked very hard and dedicated themselves for providing for food needy people, and they were very much involved in the food pantry. So if we could just take a moment to acknowledge his death. Thank you. And I just want his family to know that our hearts and prayers go out with him, for him and the family. First item on the agenda is a presentation regarding the firehouse report. Again, this is just the first presentation. We have a long way to go on this. And as way of background, I think we know that our firehouses are quite old, quite antiquated, and I think they, although they have been updated, there's still major questions about what the next step should be with our, not just the fire department, but the ambulance corps as well. So we want to get ahead of this rather than be behind it. And I know everyone's going to have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about it. So the first step was to have a firehouse study or emergency services study done. That has been done, and we're ready for the presentation on that. Rob or Laura Lee, do you have anything to add before the presentation starts?
No, we just, the village had engaged the consultant, and the consultant had prepared a report, and Rob and I are anxious to understand the presentation as well as I'm sure you are.
Okay, so I guess Michael Wilbur, you're here on behalf of?
Emergency Vehicle Response, sir.
Thank you, okay.
Just a little background. I worked in the Bronx for 32 years as a career firefighter. I was a volunteer in my hometown in Orange County in Otisville, New York for 40 years. I have an associate's degree in fire protection. I started this company, Emergency Vehicle Response, back in the mid-90s after writing for 2 national fire publications and going around speaking nationally about fire service-related issues. And I met what turned out to be, my daughter says, a brother from a different mother who became fast friends. He has a master's degree in fire protection from the University of Maryland. And so we started off doing this fire protection work throughout the country, and I have been associated with Dobbs Ferry Fire Department for a number of years, mostly in a training capacity, and then this came along, and it was right up our alley, so to speak, and so the village was gracious enough to hire us to do this work on behalf of the fire department and the ambulance corps. First, to try and tell everybody that may not know, the scope of work for us was to basically determine if the present station at Ogden Street Fire Station, the ambulance building, and this facility could in some way be used in the future or could be renovated in such a way that it would provide modern fire facilities and EMS facilities in a combination type thing, or separately, as the buildings are separate now, obviously. And then if that wasn't going to be the case, to look at properties within the village that could potentially be available, could potentially be sites for combining the 3, what turned out to be in our work, antiquated buildings. And so that was kind of our scope of work. And as part of the fire protection study, we looked at staffing. I'd like to say a word about staffing to everyone here. I moved from New York when I retired from the FDNY several years ago. And in the state of Pennsylvania, where I currently live, in 1980, there were 278,000 volunteer firefighters. Today, in the great Keystone Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there are less than 30,000. If that's not a warning to everybody sitting here, it should be. You are extraordinarily fortunate that you have a dedicated group of volunteers that are in facilities that have long outdistanced their useful life, and they still come here to volunteer and to show up and to answer alarms of fire and help for their neighbors in that capacity. They have very good staffing. We were here for an evening response at about 5 o'clock, and they got all the apparatus on the street with a number of firefighters. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, that just doesn't happen in most communities today. They are providing an invaluable resource to you for a REIT. If you had to pay for that, the cost in discussions that I've had with some could potentially be prohibitive here. So I would urge you to take care of these brave men and women that have volunteered here to do this service, and hopefully that we're going to move quickly to provide them the facilities they need to move the fire department and EMS in the village forward for the years to come. So to that goal, we looked into staffing as well. So what I'd like to do is we're going to kind of thumb through the report. If you don't have it, it seems like it's up on the screen. But one of the things that I like to do is just to go over some key observations that we had once we were here and doing the field work and doing the work. One, that the village may consider building a new combination EMS fire station capable of providing service for the next 100 years or more. A span of time not unlike the current headquarters station or the Ogden Street station, which were built here around the 1900s. Although there are no plans in the immediate future to combine the fire department and the ambulance corps, the village, in considering any combination facility, needs to prepare for what I believe on a national level has become almost an inevitability. Fire departments and EMS facilities have been merged all across this country, in part to provide staffing for both, and also as in some jurisdictions as a cost-saving measure to combine both services. Second, that during our field visit, emergency vehicle response evaluated several proposed sites for the new station combination facility. We identified the property in the Stop and Shop overflow parking lot as being ideal and centrally located in the village. We'll explain more about that as we move forward. Three, that the village, the ambulance corps, and the fire department need to tap into the untapped source of staffing for both the ambulance corps and the fire department by providing facilities in any combination station or facility that they build for a college bunker program. A couple of my employees actually were graduates of College Park out of the University of Maryland that had a fire protection program. The College Park Volunteer Firehouse answers 8,000 calls a year, and for the most part, they're all answered by college students and the kids that provide volunteerism in those stations. And basically, they are volunteers that were brought up through the system in other jurisdictions in other states. I forget how many states were represented in College Park at one time, a dozen or more, where they go to school and they bring those talents and they volunteer for that community while they are there. And the fire department provides them with dorm-style housing, and they are to staff the fire trucks at night when they're not in class, and then on weekends, and on holidays. And then, of course, for the Prince George's County Fire Department, which they're part of, the station is then staffed with career people during the day, during the week. The best career fire job, I worked in the Bronx for 32 years. I didn't get weekends and holidays and nights off, but if you work in that station in Prince George's, that's your schedule. So we're looking to Mercy College, which is right down the street. I believe that it is an untapped resource for this community. And the idea is that we're trying to keep the viability of a volunteer fire force and to some degree EMS force for perhaps a couple more decades to come in the future. It was funny, I just got another job in Varna, New York, and it's a small volunteer department outside of Cornell University and the city of Ithaca. They were all but closed 5 years ago. They had 6 members. They were failing to respond. And they started a program within the greater Cornell College, Ithaca College, and they have over 64 trained members today that are answering calls in that community. So administered right, run right, proper oversight, it's a really good program. My son was involved. Nicholas, for a number of years, he rose to the rank of chief in the College Park Fire Department in his time there. He drove.
Mr. Wilbur, I don't want to cut you short, but could you get to the highlights of the report? Because this is a presentation that you have other things. So we'd like to just, if we can get to your report, and then we could maybe ask you questions.
That's fine. Okay. Well, if you want to skip on through, we looked at all the stations. We looked under them, over them, through them, and we found that none of them would be suitable for modern-day facilities. In a modern-day facility, you would need a dirty area and a clean area. You would need shower facilities. You would need just a lot more room and a bigger footprint than any of the current facilities provide. So they were kind of out. So then we looked at properties, and we kind of drove around. There were several properties that we were taken to. They could have been potential sites for relocating the fire department and the EMS into one combined facility. The first place we were shown is 99 Cedar Street. It's a village-owned lot. It's down at the bottom of the hill. The site was found not to be big enough, not have a big enough footprint to provide enough space.
When you say it wasn't big enough to provide a big enough footprint, so is there some kind of a standard that you look at to use and say, we need X amount of square feet to adequately supply, have the proper emergency services?
What it becomes is just housing the vehicles and then housing the people within that facility. Right now, between the ambulance and the fire department has 3 engines, a ladder, and a rescue type vehicle, and the ambulance has 2 ambulances. And then the idea is to build the building for the future where you would have bunking facilities, places to stay overnight, training facilities, decontamination rooms for both EMS and for fire. And so taking all that into account, that's what leads us to believe that the footprint just isn't big enough there. And then we were told to look at 145 Palisades Street, which is next door. But then we were told that they were adamant that they weren't going to sell that. And it really wasn't an ideal location based on the fact that it wasn't centrally located within the village. Okay, so we kind of...
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
so you were saying that you were taken to places that were predetermined, but at any point did you just go around and maybe try to identify a spot?
It's funny, we did do that, and it was the one spot that I said, what about that one? And I was told that that the gentleman that owned that site had actually had previous litigation or was in litigation or didn't particularly care for the village.
19 Livingston.
Yeah, and that, in no way in heck were they gonna sell out the village or property. So yes, we did do that. There's some beautiful property up by the kids' school, but again, that's just too far out of the way. It's not centrally located to where the services are needed.
Gotcha.
When you were looking at the square footage and the physical plant that you assume is required, was there a consideration of, I understand that in an ideal world, we're consolidating these services, we're making things more efficient, we're probably looking at, putting EMS and fire in the same building for a whole number of reasons. Did you consider, for example, with 99 Cedar, is there a possible scenario in which part of one or both fire and EMS go to 99 Cedar, and then Ogden or one or two of the Ashford locations would stay there, for example? Or were you only looking at sites that you felt could accommodate the entirety of the services in this ideal world where they're all under one roof?
I was looking for that for a number of reasons. One, would be a 100-year building, plus we would be able to make it green. It would be more efficient than the heating plants and everything that you have in the current facilities. The current facilities, unfortunately, in my experience, just couldn't be brought up to modern day standards. You would be trying to throw good money after bad to try to do that. So better to start fresh, start with a clean slate, as it were, and try to do it like this. I think, again, I'm kind of your employee and representing you. You hired me to do this work, and try to keep the best interests of everybody at heart in making some of these determinations and recommendations. So there was nothing really, I have no skin in this game.
Right.
So I didn't come in here with any predetermined thoughts about anything. I don't have any political axis to grind or anything like that. I came in here with my knowledge and said, okay, what would be best? And what was interesting, we looked at sites at Aldergate Church property, and you can see for those that had the report, there's a picture that shows the Irvington town line right by the church. Well, part of offering good EMS and fire service to your community is to have a good response time. Okay, and to get units out and to be pretty much equal distant from, again, in this perfect world, to get units out in the same amount of time to the same places and get them there to provide service to our customers, which is the community at large. So this is basically what you would be doing here, which from a fire protection standpoint isn't very good, is doing what Ardsley did when they built a station right on your line, right over to the sawmill. There's a station there. So they put a station right at the edge of their district, having to travel all the rest of the way. So when you're starting out kind of fresh and new like this and trying to come up with the best course of action, that's not really viable. It doesn't make, in my world of fire protection and doing this kind of work, it makes no sense at all to put it there. And then the other place was the children's school.
The Alcott School?
Alcott School, yeah, that was just down the street a little ways. And that kind of is, it's not centric. and it's just a little ways down the street from that. And so that wasn't as good. I can tell you, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and to some degree, if it can be done, the Stop and Shop parking lot site is like the best site I've ever had doing this kind of work, to put what you're looking to put, a combination facility. It's flat. It is about as centrally located in this response area as you can ever get. I went back not once, not twice, not 3 times. I went back 4 times to just see if I could find anything wrong with it. You can build a station there where you can go out one way and come out the other way. You have a traffic control device on Ashford Avenue to get out onto the main thoroughfare. You have good lines of sight. You have enough room. From the work that I do, it checks all the boxes and then some. The response time and the response distances are great. And one thing that we found out later on when we went back home, we started to plot the location of all the volunteer firefighters that would come there to answer calls. By moving the station from here to there, you put the main group of people that answer your calls closer and within an 1/8 of a mile to that location. So not only is that location central to everyone in the community, but it actually is closer to all the people that are expected to staff fire trucks here. And so it was like, oh my goodness, could it get any better? And the answer is not. So one of the things that we looked at when we were looking at the stations, we looked at here. And it is of grave concern is the structural stability of the floor where the fire trucks presently sit. I would urge you with all speed to hire a certified structural engineer to come in and make sure that the floor is going to continue to do what it's supposed to do, and he can probably give you a timeline as to how much longer you can potentially stay here. Behind the tandem axle of the tower ladder, there's a picture in the report where it shows a huge crack. So although the bay is this long, they can only use this much of the bay because if they back the truck up, then so that's a grave concern. So I think if we could get the board to move on that, that would be a really good idea. Find out, because one of the things that we looked for when we were trying to gather data for the report, we were told that there was a structural engineer that had come in and looked at this before the rehab truck came back, and there were pillars and steel columns put in the basement to hold up that area. Well, you can tell that that work had to be done by some kind of engineer, and I was told that there was a village engineer, and then I was told there wasn't a village engineer. And I said, well, where's the report? Nobody could really come up with a report. So I think it would be in everybody's best interest to get to the bottom of what the structural stability of the firehouse floor is there with those trucks on it. I think it's in everybody's best interest. And I think he's going to tell me what he's going to tell you what I'm trying to tell you. You need to act now, and you need to get some kind of new facilities for both the ambulance and the fire department.
Okay, well, thank you. Do you have a question?
Well, I have a couple of questions. You know, I understand all of the reasoning. I read every word of this report, and I understand what is wrong and dangerous with the facilities that we have now. I understand, you know, why combining the services into one facility is ideal. And there's a lot of theory in here about, it would be great if we could have a college bunk kind of program. But I don't know if anybody has spoken to Mercy College about doing that. So I don't know whether that is a theoretically excellent thing, or whether there's as a practical matter, whether there's a step that's been taken to initiate that conversation so that we can just understand just better whether that is a staffing solution. Of all of I understand what you're saying about 19 Livingston and the owners not necessarily being interested in helping the village out, but has anybody spoken to any Stop and Shop, for example, if that is ideal? Do we know that that is available?
So I don't think Mr. Wilbur would have that.
Trustee Rosenberg.
I don't think Mr. Wilbur would
We're
have.
waiting till the
My question is,
report.
have those conversations?
No, because these are recommendations, so after the presentation and the recommendations are digested, then you could provide that instruction. I do have a relationship with your attorney, but I did not want to reach out until I knew what direction. This is a report which clearly advises a combined facility with two separate entities. So, you have to talk it through step by step. So, no, we haven't reached out to Mercy University yet. No,
sorry,
none of
Mercy
that's been done because these are recommendations.
Right, so let's just, I would try for all of us just to stay to what Mr. Wilbur's report
Yeah.
says, and then we can describe what to next.
I also just I want the public to understand that that is what this is a series of recommendations that have not been explored, that have not been decided upon, so that there's no mistake that this is there is a done deal to any of this. This is something that we are exploring, that the needs are very clear, and, we understand that the facilities are not in great shape and need to be replaced, but that this is not the plan at this point. This is a series of recommendations that, will be the next step towards a plan.
That's correct.
So, do we have any more questions for Mr. Wilbur? Anybody else?
I do. First of all, I want to make a comment, which is, I completely agree with you and with what we've been hearing for years from our volunteer firemen, that we need to do something, and we need to do it very quickly to get the right kind of facility for the long term for the fire department. It's been too long that it's been Band-Aids and other things. But let me ask you this, when you talk about response times, what do you think the driving time under lights and siren is from Aldersgate to the center of Cedar and Main, where your chosen site is? Is it 90 seconds?
My concern wouldn't be that, sir. My concern would be getting the staffing from where they are, right by the Stop and Shop, go through the busy intersection to get out to that, then get in the truck, and then go lights and sirens 90 seconds backwards. That's the concern.
So how does the staff map relative to, you said 1/8 of a mile to Stop and Shop? I apologize if it's in the report and I missed it.
Right, it was an addendum in the back.
Okay,
Okay, I can show you that so that you can get up to speed. We had the fire chief plot his staffing on a map for us. We worked with him. There's a Stop and Shop, and all the dots
Yeah.
represent.
but again, it's, with lights inside, it's not a long drive. In other words, it's, I don't know how far it is.
They're going to be going in their personal vehicles, and they would have to cross the busy intersection there by the Shell station to get over there, and then bring rigs back to the other side of town. There's no lights and sirens in the private vehicles along there.
I would just want to address that too, because if right now they're all going to Ogden or they're going to Main Street, then that's further than that. But also, the Alcott Montessori School, though, is what, 2 blocks from Stop and Shop? So, I'm not an expert in response times, and I will say this, I want to thank all the firefighters and the EMS for their service, because it is truly a gift, and it's wonderful that everybody volunteers so much of their time. And we did take a tour of the fire station on Main Street, and quite frankly, I was shocked at at the state of it. And it, in my opinion, it is unacceptable, especially when we have all these generous volunteers who are putting their lives at risk. There are things that need to get done immediately, because even if we all agreed today on a location and to consolidate everything, it would still take years to get it done, and get the money, get it done, so there are things that have to be done now in the existing facilities to help bring them up to the best that we can to make it more adequate. But if we're talking about a combined facility where there is dorms or bunks or whatever, then some of the volunteers will be there at the station, and they won't have to get to the station. So I just want to make that clear. And just to reiterate Trustee Rosenberg's
That's
point, this is a recommendation, and you put a lot of work into it, and we thank you for that. But there's nothing in here that's going to cause us to act on this today, because there is theoretical things in there that we would have to.
Well, we could take some action today, but
Right.
let's just see. So any other questions regarding the report from our trustees?
Yeah, so in the report, you talk about ISO standards. Can you just like give a brief overview of that and
ISO
why?
is the Insurance Service Office. It is a privately funded group, and it's funded by insurance companies to set fire protection or fire insurance rates for clients that are within this consortium that fund ISO. And ISO sends out inspectors, and they inspect the fire station facilities, they inspect the apparatus, they inspect mostly the records. And much of the records has to do with staffing and with response times. And so they have acceptable levels, and it's interesting that you should bring that up, because there's a page in here where I listed some of the response distances from Stop and Shop. So from that parking lot to the Irvington border is 0.5 miles, to Sawmill River Ashford border is 1.1, to Hastings is 1.2, Stop and Shop West border to Half Moon Restaurant is 0.8 miles, to Northfield, Cyrus Field Road is 1.8 miles, to Avenue B border kids school is 1.4, Ogden Street Station is 0.5, and the ambulance corps is 0.3. So the idea being that under ISO rules, that to have a good fire rating, you need to have these trucks within 3 miles, which are well within that. To be superior, you could have the trucks within 1.5 miles, and almost by putting the combined facility there, you would meet that criteria in all but one case. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means all the other ones are really, really great to get within that 1.5 mile time, 1.5 mile distance. And that's part of the ISO. And they're an independent rating agency that sets fire insurance rates, and they do it based on some of the formulas that they use, and it's part, as a consultant, it's part of the standards along with the National Fire Protection Association standards that we use to do this kind of work.
So are you saying that insurance rates for homeowners are set in part, the underwriting is set in part by the likelihood of rescue from a fire?
I'm saying that the insurance rates for both commercial and private are set by ISO based on their rating. They give that to the member insurance companies. They tell them what the fire department is like based on their criteria, and then the insurance company sets the rates. And what's interesting, when you're a private homeowner, ISO is based on 10 classes, 1 being the best, 10 being you're more than 5 miles from a fire station and you don't have any fire protection at all. You're not credited for it. You may be paying for it, but you are not credited for having it because you're too far. So under their system, I think, what were you, a 4?
We're borderline 3 or 4.
Yeah, we were borderline 4 to 3. You needed just a couple more points to get to a 3. So when you can change class from a 4 to a 3, you will save a few bucks as a private homeowner. But when you do that for your commercial ratepayers here in the village, that their insurance companies are a member of this consortium, they're going to have a really big savings It's a big deal on the commercial side.
Gotcha.
They paid much more favorable rates, and their insurance premiums are much lower.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
So, Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to address one thing, one of the action items. On the Chapter 4.3, we're talking about the ambulance core station.
Yes.
We focused in on that, and just to let the board know, I did send the fire inspector out there upon reviewing this. So we went out there the next day after reviewing this, and they actually wrote this up, and they already took steps towards cleaning that up and making it more standard. So thank you for pointing that out.
And one of the other things there, they had, the night that we came to visit that facility, the duty crew had complained that the floor was starting to sag. So while you have the engineer here and he's on the clock, it might not necessarily be a terrible idea to send him up there as well, just as a thought.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Wheeler? Okay, I want to thank you for the study. It's very exhaustive, and I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure this won't be the last we see of you, so thank you for that, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for listening, I appreciate it. And again, you all have my business card. If you read through this and you have any other questions, I'm always available. I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night now.
Good night. Okay, the next item is the public hearing, and rather than open it and adjourn it, where I've been advised that the planning board has not made any kind of decisions, and they would ask for more time before they can weigh in on this. So based upon that, I'm going to, do I need a motion to adjourn it?
Yeah.
So is there a motion to adjourn this public hearing to January 9th, 2024 at 7:30? Trustee Patino, second trustee Taylor, all in favor. Public hearing is hereby adjourned to January 9th. Next is courtesy of the floor, and anybody can come up and speak. You have 3 minutes to speak. Obviously, we just heard a very early presentation about this, and you'll have plenty of other opportunities to speak about it, but certainly you can come up and speak again. You have 3 minutes, so come on up. You're the closest to the mic, so.
Can you please point the mic toward?
Yeah, just tell us who you are and where you live.
Hi, I'm Brianne Lusick. I live on 21 Bellwood Avenue, and I'm here tonight as a resident of the Walgrove Park neighborhood and as a member of Our Street, Dobbs Ferry. I've reviewed the report prepared by Emergency Vehicle Response about our fire department and its needs. As you know, the report recommends building a large new facility at 414 Broadway, which is currently the Stop and Shop auxiliary parking lot. I'm concerned that this report does not mention or consider the effects such a facility would have on traffic and pedestrian safety in the village. Under the proposal, the new facility would be located on Walgrove Avenue, just steps away from the intersection of Walgrove, Broadway, and Ashford Avenue. This intersection is one of the busiest, if not the busiest intersections in the village, both for pedestrians and cars. Importantly, this is a main route children take while walking and biking to Springhurst, the middle school, and the high school. Walgrove Avenue sees high traffic from school buses, parents taking their children to and from school, and vehicles traveling to and from the children's village. Adding to the commotion is traffic to Stop and Shop, the only supermarket in the village. In short, this is a congested area for both people and vehicles. According to the report, the fire department and emergency services respond to over 1,200 calls for service each year, and each response usually involves multiple vehicles. What will this traffic do to an already heavily trafficked area? How will it affect our children walking to and from school? Unfortunately, emergency vehicle response does not consider, evaluate, or even mention the traffic near 414 Broadway in making its proposal. Notably, the report refers to Mercy, the Master's School, and the Children's Village, but does not discuss our 3 public schools and how such a facility will have an impact on them. While the report does a very good job of evaluating the fire department's needs, it only presents one perspective, that of emergency services. I ask that the board take a holistic view when evaluating this proposal, considering all the impacts such a facility would have, especially those on traffic and pedestrian safety in the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Anna. I'm a relatively new resident to Dobbs Ferry, and I don't have such eloquently prepared remarks, but I want to support the similar things that you're saying as a parent of a fourth grader who is now at Springhurst and will be at the middle school in just a couple of years. There's quite a lot of groups of students who walk through that very intersection, and this makes me, as a mother, very nervous. I understand the central location and the desirability of combining these resources, and I want to give respect and honor the members of the crew who are our volunteers, because we wouldn't be in this town in the way we are protected without them. So I want to acknowledge that. But I am concerned about how that intersection is already, to my mind, as a parent of a fourth grader, rather terrifying when I think about my sixth grader, future sixth grader, just being able to cross Ashford. It's a scary intersection where you have 15 seconds to get across, and if an emergency vehicle is flying through with a siren, I don't feel safe for my child, even in a group. So that's my nervousness. That's a very crux of the town. So that's my concern about the location. And I want to thank you all for being here and for your service to our community.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jody Patkin. I live at 30 Bellwood. And while I support the upgrading of our emergency response facilities, I have major concerns about the proposal we just reviewed. The report solely focuses on the ideal scenario for the fire department with no consideration for the many intersectional implications it would have on our small village. At a time when Dobbs Ferry is investing in reviving our downtown, this build would cut off access and much-needed parking for our town's sole grocer. We're not discussing an empty lot. We're talking about a parking lot that is always full and also utilized to access downtown Dobbs Ferry, where parking is at a premium. This build would also create a tax loss from Stop and Shop, which we very much need. The proposal would further leave another massive vacancy on Main Street. The storefront next door to the current firehouse has been vacant for quite some time, and the report does not at all explore leveraging this space either. Further, the proposed site is at the busiest intersection in town. Even with control of the traffic lights, this location could slow down response times and further disrupt an already problematic traffic pattern. The town would also lose an entrance to Stop and Shop, creating further congestion on Broadway in Ashford, Bellwood, and Walgrove, which are already overutilized by business patrons and staff, creating hazardous conditions. The builds would also be very problematic to our school community. There are well-documented and abundant traffic and safety issues on Bellwood and Walgrove for student walkers, car congestion, speeding by parents, children, village residents, and employees, and severe challenges with buses, which must access both Bellwood and Walgrove. The location and size of this proposed fire station would further exacerbate these issues. Additionally, the abundant noise pollution coming from an 8-bay station so close to Springhurst would make learning a major challenge for our students and would be the constant soundtrack of our small village, disrupting students, businesses, and residents. It also seems as though the option of renovation at any site was quickly discarded without the option to keep or renovate or keep separate stations being carefully considered. To that end, as we know, this is a beginning. There's no mention of cost anywhere in this plan or analysis between new builds for all 3 sites. A similar proposal in Irvington was quoted around $18 million. The project has serious implications for our village, and I'm deeply concerned that it has not been considered holistically, nor are many residents aware. I implore the mayor and trustees to revise this proposal and ask the fire department to work in partnership with our schools, with our Safe Street Committee, with our Downtown Improvement Committee, utilize urban planning and traffic assessments to create a new proposal with the overall village needs and safety concerns at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, thanks very much. I have a little bit of deja vu because some of us were here.
Want to tell us who you are?
Oh, my name is Julie Ballington. I live in the Walgrove Avenue neighborhood. So some of us were here a year ago discussing this through a workshop. I'm pleased to see it progress, although I think some of the same issues are still sort of on the table. Just a couple, I've got 3 main points. 2 relate to the report itself. One has been around sites, which has already been discussed. The report itself mentions 3 or 4 locations, 2 of which were already off the table as being, possibilities for the firehouse. So I'm not sure why they were included. So in effect, only Stop and Shop was assessed as being an option for the firehouse. So the report is lacking in alternate options, lacks flexibility and foresight. What about reimagining the village hall, police station, fire station, move administration to a new building? The report notes that separate bunking, eating, training facilities are needed between the fire department and the EMS. So what is the purpose of a mega facility? What cost savings result from a massive buildings with two sets of logistical needs versus repurposing the Ogden Fire Station, for example, for the EMS, and if they need a separate facility, and that would reduce the footprint of a future firehouse. Need. I don't see in the report that there's enough specific data on the actual needs of the village. Some numbers are mentioned in the report, like 1,200 incidents per year, 466 responses. What was the nature of the call-outs? How many calls to EMS? How many medical emergencies? How many structural fires? Alarmingly, the report notes that 50% of all calls are false and that there is a high incidence of minor nuisance calls. So one of the consequences that's mentioned in the report is the shrinking of the team of volunteer firefighters who we're very grateful to, so thank you for all your services. But I understand what a predicament that is. If you're leaving your family and going to respond to a call that is actually a prank call, nuisance call, or just a false alarm. I think, but what about talking to looking at the root causes of that? Address the false alarms and nuisance calls. To the end users, the residents of the village, address the false nuisance calls from the starting point so that there's less engines that have to go out and less responses needed per year. A broader point I have is on the scope of the project and really the vision for the village. 8 bays, is there a comparable facility anywhere in New York State? What does that say about our town that we need a 8-bay emergency medical or EMS building? I get a bit concerned that there are very real needs in the village of Dobbs Ferry that require 8-bay emergency facility response unit or facility. The business and fiscal case for the vast building has not been made. Why does this need to be prioritized over other village-wide concerns, such as burying power lines, drainage, or affordable housing? 3 stories, 2 training centers, an academy, 2 sets of bunk rooms, toilets and kitchens, and parking. What is the documented need for this vast arsenal of a building?
You can finish.
Can
Go.
I
You
innocent
can
with
finish.
one, with one additional thought? Oh, 2 thoughts. One is on, there's a mention of per diems for volunteer firefighters in the future, that this is the way that things might be headed in the future. Why can't Dobbs innovate and think about per diems now if that's an incentive to get firefighters? How can we rely on Mercy College to stick to an agreement that they can renege on any time? And we've put all our eggs in one basket relying on Mercy College to provide some firefighters for us. It doesn't seem like that's based on solid logic. I urge the village to start public consultations. I think this discussion has been quite one-sided on the needs of the firehouse, which is perfectly legitimate and understandable. However, as we've heard, other village residents have many other concerns. It's an intersection of many different types of people and different needs of villages. There's also a logistics and administration rollout, and I've tried to reach out to Mr. Yamuda just to understand a little bit more about the process of how this firehouse is going to be developed. So I would urge more information from the board. Please reach out to us. Please start public consultations so we don't end up in the same situation as Irvington. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Sean McGinn. I live on Wall Grove Avenue. I agree with everything that was been said. Everybody said pretty much everything that needs to be said. And I went through the report. I understand the need for that too. Looks like the Stop and Shop site is the site. I asked the board and anybody who's planning to keep into consideration of how to preserve and protect the residential side of that whole complex there. Right now, we have a buffer, there's a big grass lawn where the parking lot ends. That kind of at least creates some differentiation between this kind of very commercial zone and noisy with lots of pollution and the houses. And one of the things that's really alarming about the report is, it seems like this firehouse wants to be a minimum of 8 bays, which sounds very, very large. It would basically go from the gas station up into the nearest house. And I think that would really destroy all the quality of life and character of the neighborhood there. And also the commerce that goes on around there too. And so just keep in mind that it should be a smaller size or a more compact size to take into consideration all the other needs. And that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so, oh, go ahead, Patty.
Patty Steinschneider, 329 Broadway, between Oak and Elm, which backs up to the Village Hall parking lot, which happens to be where Village Hall is, which happens to be where the fire department is. I understand the concerns that have been expressed. I think there's a lot of concern having a firehouse in your neighborhood. When they're making emergency calls, you hear the sirens, and that can be disturbing. The main thing that's disturbing to me is thinking there are people in need, and I'm really glad that they're there to help them. They're amazing with their response. They've done so many great things for the village. I find it very difficult to find any criticism of why I would say I wouldn't want them in my neighborhood. I actually I hope they're as close as there, because I like having them where they are now. I understand these concerns. I understand the sense of fear of that there's going to be this big change, but almost every comment that was made is going to apply to anything you do. We have these intersections that are very complicated. We're going to have to get through them. That doesn't depend on where the firehouse is. Most of the time, the intersection with Ashford Avenue and Broadway, the reality is you can't get through Dobbs Ferry from one end to the other without going through there unless you go out to the sawmill. So we're going to have those problems. We're always going to have those problems. They're not caused by the firehouse. What we need to do, I do agree that this has to be a holistic approach. Almost everything you guys have ever done, you put together a committee that gets people who are firemen, people who aren't firemen, all those kinds. I'm not a fireman. They never would let me be in the club. I talk too much, and I'm too irritating, but, that's just me. The reality here is we've been talking about this since 1983. This is the first time I went to a meeting that talked about the need for a new fire department. We were hoping to change this. That didn't work. I've looked at the building. I've seen what's below it. It really is a major problem. It needs to be addressed as quickly as it can be. And some of you know there's some larger ways of looking at this, which I will not mention or go into because it will just get me in more trouble. But the reality here is there are opportunities, and we should take advantage of those opportunities, and we should make this happen as quickly as we can in a way that best serves everybody in Dobbs Ferry. If you can find a place to put a firehouse that has nobody living near it, it's probably not the right place for the firehouse. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Chuck?
Neil Sweeting, Riley Road, member of the fire department, 39 years. I was chief twice, been through the ranks, 12 years. When I was chief in 97, first got on, we talked about this, and we had major issues in this building back then. We lost the use of the downstairs. This has gone way, way too long. There's one thing on what Mike said, we're getting by due to some really very dedicated people. It is a very dwindling dedicated group of people. And one thing Mike did not identify in that dedicated group is the majority of that dedicated group has over 25 years in the department. We are really at a dangerous point where we need to get people in here. Whatever we can do to start retention, getting better facilities. People get frustrated, and we lose people because they get frustrated with stuff. So this is critical. It's not just firehouse, which is a major priority, but we need to tie this all into our future abilities to deliver service, because we have a limited amount of people. How much longer? I'm almost 60 years old. How much longer are I going to be doing this? So we just got to keep that in mind. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm not a big speaker, but I want to address a couple of things.
Tell us who you are.
My name's Michael Marin. I live at Livingston Manor, where the fire department housing is. I'm a 30-plus year member of this fire department. I started at 14 when we had a junior corps that started there. I had a lot of friends that started with me. I went to college. If the firehouse had stuff like we're proposing, I would have been living in the firehouse and going to college at the same time. This doesn't really have anything to do with Mercy College This has to do with the kids that go to Mercy College. And I can tell you, going through that lot, you have ones from New Jersey, you have ones from Connecticut, you have ones from Long Island that go there every day. Some of them commute every day. Having that at the firehouse would be great, but you also need senior guys like myself and the other gentleman here to be there to make sure everything goes correctly, and that's what we have proposed. Also, I have 2 children myself. I understand about kids walking around. I understand about fire apparatus running through this village. But we all work with our children. We explain how to do things. I would say 95% of the kids get it. They hear a siren and they'll stop. But if you want, we can also talk to them. I worked in the school district for many years before I have employment here in the village of Dobbs Ferry, teaching kids. They learn, they understand. And if anybody wants to talk to me, I'll be right outside and I can explain it to you, or we can work through any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so there were a lot of issues that were brought up in the reports. In my mind, a lot of sites were mentioned, and frankly, I don't know if any of those sites are even available at all. So in my mind, I think maybe the next step would be to reach out to the owners of these properties and see what's available, if any is available, and then we can come back and say, you know what, out of the 5 sites that were identified, whatever, none of them are available. So we have to go back, further, or maybe 1 or 2 are, and then we can see if that would work. So that would be the way that I would approach this. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, and certainly everybody could speak up.
I think it's critical that we don't just focus on a single site for a whole lot of reasons, and not the least of which is economic. If you go and say to somebody, well, you're my choice, you're the only one I could use, you're not going to be able to negotiate. And I also think, as the mayor is saying, we're not sure about the availability or the economics or feasibility of any of the sites. So I think multiple fronts is the way to look at this. And I think we should be pushing forward now because it's going to take a while to get this done.
I completely agree that we need to turn what are the theoretical recommendations in here into a concrete set of possibilities so that we can make choices based on real opportunities. I think it behooves us to have conversations with Mercy to see if this is even a viable program. I agree with the mayor and with Larry that we should be looking at multiple sites, and that it is a terrible negotiating position to say, I got to have this one thing. But I also want to go back to one of the recommendations that the presenter brought up, which is I do think we should also take the action of hiring an engineer to take a look at what is just visually, having been on the tour of the station downstairs, something that looks like it is potentially going to reach a point of critical failure. Like, yes, we've been talking about this in one board configuration or another for 30, 40 years. The problem's not getting better by itself. We should employ an engineer to find out what the actual volume of the ticking clock is so that we can get some sense of how urgently we need to proceed through this.
And I would also say, I agree with that. I would also say that since one of the major things that was brought up by residents, many of whom live on my block, is the safety of pedestrians, mainly children, but walking to school. I think it would behoove us also to talk to the schools and to have them weigh in, which would also include the master school, because we are talking about Esterwood, and that is how a lot of the master's kids go up that hill through that gate. So, you know, if it looks like, and we also don't know if any of these properties are for sale. So, you know, there's a whole lot of ifs. I think what we can all agree is that we do need to address the state of the current facilities and do what we can for right now while we're working on this bigger picture. I personally agree that they should be combined, and that is the way that things are going in other municipalities, and it makes sense if we can find a location for it, but without having, you know, as Julie said, without having the costs of all this, without knowing what's available, without getting the schools to weigh in, there's just, this is the very beginning. I think we've all agreed that there's a need for something, and some of it will be short-term, some of it will be midterm, and then ultimately, the long-term will be a site.
So I think we should have the site narrowed down before we get the other stakeholders involved, but definitely they should, and I think residents and maybe a subcommittee, but I think we have to narrow down where, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's a good point. A lot of things that came up today are valid issues, but they're much further down the line of assessment. So if you, I think the need for a new firehouse is unequivocal. Exactly how that gets done is the next step that we undertake. And if you're going to undertake a new building, you need to do two things: identify sites and study those sites. And so we've identified a few. We should determine if they're actually viable, meaning for sale, and within some budget we established. But I think in addition, we need someone who can help us assess those from a planning point of view. So this site is available, will it work for the proposed firehouse? And I think we should talk about whether our current village planner can undertake something like that, because without a planning professional involved, again, we're not taking the right steps to make progress. So I think we do those two things. We'll reconvene at some, you know, ideally not too far from now, and have an idea about what sites are available and what we can do on them.
Okay, Trustee Galen?
Yeah, I think I would love to know, it would be great to have a conversation that, so we understand even what sites possibly could be part of this conversation, but I don't feel like I have enough information yet to say I understand that in an ideal scenario, we have one central building for everyone. There may be reasons why that isn't the ideal situation here, or it isn't feasible here for cost or other reasons. So I just think we should be looking at the universe of things that include the buildings and the lots that we already own. And as we're looking over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years of things that we want to see built that are big development projects, and understand how those things could all fit together. So I just want to say for the record that I think even if we go out and we say, okay, one of these lots is willing to sell and it's within our budget and whatever it is, I would love to then have a process that involves the entire community, that includes, of course, volunteer fire and ambulance corps, that includes residents, that includes the schools, that includes everyone, where we say, okay, this lot is on the table, is the best use of this lot this one particular thing, or is there some more nuanced approach that solves a few more of our issues? And I think we cannot ignore that we have an issue with recruitment and all these other things. We are not going to solve the recruitment and retention issue for the volunteer fire department by, with a building that might or might not be built for the next 10 years. So I just also want to log that we have to deal with that now and support the Corps now in a number of different ways. And I think one of those core ways is looking at engineering now and other things we can do to improve. Although I heard from a number of the firefighters that they don't, they advise us against throwing good money after bad. I completely understand that concern, but the reality is we're talking about a very long process, even if we had a perfect lot within budget that everyone agreed to. So we need to do some other things now as well.
Okay, so I think first up, Laura Lee and Rob, the sites that have been identified in the study, can you reach out on behalf of the village and just see what the level of interest is as far as sales go. And number two, I think we should reach out to our village planner to see if she feels that she's qualified to be involved in this, and if not, can she recommend a number of firms that would be? And number three, I do think a structural engineer maybe should come in and take a look at and tell us, you know what, we have a year, 2 years, 6 months, because God forbid something should happen while you guys are in there, God forbid.
And I believe there was also a problem identified at the EMS building with the kitchen flooring. So perhaps the structural engineer
Yes.
could take a look at the facilities to see what's possible.
And again, I saw something in the report
AI
about
has
water
some-
and the hydrants, in some areas not being, should be tested. That was a concern of mine, but I don't know if it's a legit
And that's
concern.
Veolia? We
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
with the, just a little background with the hydrants, so they get tested by Veolia. The Village of Dobbs Ferry does not own any fire hydrants. We rent them from the water company. So what they do is they go around, they're supposed to go around, periodically, every few years to test the hydrants and map out the water pressure of the hydrants and, get that information to us. So we know that, okay, if it's off of Broadway, we know that's a bigger water main there, so we're gonna have higher pressure. So that's the stuff with the hydrants that was identified in the report. Depending on, locations and stuff, that is a factor. Water supply and all that gets factored into the ISO rating and all that as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's it? Okay. All right, so everyone, again, keep reading the agendas, which is the first step, but we are going to move forward with it, and we want everyone's input on this, and we will be as transparent as we have been so far with this, and we'll keep going forward with it. And we want to thank you for involvement and stay involved, and we'll go forward with it. So we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda, so if you guys want to leave, now is the time to leave. Sure, come on up.
You'll have to, yeah, you'll have to. Yeah. Please, thank you.
For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm the captain of the ambulance corps. My name is Swapnil Pandya. Just to what Laura Lee said, there are a couple sections of the floor that are sagging. More concerning to our members is the fact that there is an exposed steel beam between, I guess, our building and the Pretty Pets building. It's been there for quite some years. We were told, I want to say back in 2012, 2013, that there was an engineering report done. I asked the village administrator back then, and then I think again in 2015 and again in 2017 for a copy of that report. We were never given that. So I don't know if the village still has a copy of that, but that's just one other thing, maybe if there is someone coming out, that they could take a look at.
I'm sorry, exposed steel beam between you and,
The Pretty Pets building, the building right adjacent to us.
There's like a gap between.
I may actually have that report, since I was on the board back then, so I'll
Yeah.
check and see.
I
Just if-
think
if
either
someone going
way,
out, I figured.
if it's 10 years old that it was last looked at, it should just.
too.
It
get
should,
looked
yeah, it
at
should probably be looked at again.
New,
I don't think it's worth having to dig it out. I think it's,
just
yeah,
do it
moving
again.
forward, I think would be good to current, looking at the current condition. And just a reminder that there is a proposal and that Anthony and Rob and I are working on the upgrades here to address that, the dampness and the reasons why the police department had to move out of their area and sort of infiltrated was as a result of the flooding, most of which occurred resulting from a vent underground that had not been closed off. So when the sidewalk project came through, it really brought everything to light. But I know Mike has also been working with the French drain that they're going to be putting around the back. So, things are happening incrementally and perhaps combined with that and a result of the structural engineering report, there might be, like Trustee Asher's asked for, things we can do in the immediate term that might assist with the comfort level and until we can get going. Acquiring property and a proposal and bonding, and that would be a 6 to 8 year process. So it isn't something that can be addressed immediately, but having this report, and again, I know it was referenced as a proposal, but it really is a report. So it's important to remember that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to execute a service agreement with Cintas for first aid cabinets and automated external defibrillators? We have a memo from village administrator about that, so I don't think there's much we need to discuss. So is there a motion? Trustee Rosen Asher, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Action. Action item number 2 is a resolution, is there a resolution approving and consenting to the filing of the certificate of amendment of the certificate of incorporation of Resolute Hook and Ladder Company number 1? So we also have a memo saying that the fire company wants to change their names to, I guess, make it more, okay, to make it more, so, you know.
I'm sorry, I'm the treasurer for the fire department, and basically what it is, Resolute.
Tell us who you are.
Edward Marin. 49-year member, that'll help you out. Resolute Hook and Ladder Company is one of the companies made up of the fire department. Resolute Hook and Ladder Company is a 501c. We're incorporated. Ogden Engine is not, and Livingston Hose is not. So what's been happening lately is companies have been donating or looking to donate on a matching grant program, and they see Resolute Hook and Ladder Company, but they don't associate that with the fire department. So when we went to our attorneys, they said the easiest way to accomplish something is to do a name change. So we're going to change it over to the Dobbs Ferry Fire Company number 1, working as Resolute Hook and Ladder Company, or operating as Resolute Hook and Ladder Company, and that's the reason for it. So when people look for matching grants, they'll see Dobbs Ferry Fire and associate it, of course, with us, instead of looking for Resolute Hook and Ladder and figuring out who are they.
Right.
So that's the reason for it.
Okay, makes sense. So is there a motion to approve and consent to the filing of the certificate of amendment and of the certificate of incorporation of the Resolute Hook and Ladder Company? Trustee Rosen Asher, second. Trustee Rosenberg, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Got it. Action item number 3 is to consider a resolution authorizing the village administrator to sign and execute a memorandum of understanding between the village of Dobbs Ferry and the county of Westchester for access to Westchester records online. Do have a memo from the Westchester County Clerk explaining the benefits of this agreement, of this association, and what our access is. So is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign and execute the memorandum of understanding? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Galen, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Action item number 4 is to consider a resolution to reinstate Darlene Manning to the competitive clerk position. I think we had gotten information from the judge about this.
Yeah, Mayor, something came to light from the Westchester County Civil Service as of today. We might have to move this agenda to another meeting because some of the paperwork has to be filed and it hasn't been approved. So we tried in good faith to get this on the agenda, but this paperwork has to catch up.
Okay, so is there a motion to table this resolution? Trustee Rosen Asher, second. Trustee Galen, all in favor. Motion is hereby tabled. Thank you. Action item number 5 is to consider a resolution to allow the police department to purchase a new hybrid police vehicle. We have a memo from the chief dated December 4th, discussing why
I
it should be done.
apologize, Mayor and Board. It's actually, as we discussed at the last meeting, even though the police chief was looking for a hybrid, as it come to light, he couldn't find one in time. And I think the board approved going with a gas car.
That is
So if you go a little further, actually, as part of the proposal on the second page, the top line, it's a $2,000 deduction to have the gas vehicle. So the resolution is the same, minus the hybrid version. It's a gas version.
Well, in the title here, it says new hybrid police vehicle, so we're going to cross that out, right?
Correct, that should not be in there.
So is there a motion to allow the police department to purchase a new police vehicle off of Westchester County contract number RFB WC 22336 in the amount of $65,404.95? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Galen, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Action item number 6. Is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to execute a change order for the Main Street Sidewalks Improvement Project for the stabilization of vaults located between sidewalks at 97, 117, and 135 Main Street, and to authorize additional funds?
Oh, we did this already.
Yeah.
I think we had, was there something additional that we had to do, Rob?
I thought we had issued change orders for all the votes.
You had up to language in it, and it's not enough to cover the
I
cost.
got it. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Thank you, yes.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't belts and suspend or something, but.
And I think
Your
we've been-
best. I appreciate you.
We've been reimbursed, I think, on 2 of the properties, right? So,
One property isn't, made an outright payment. The second property, as a result of the condemnation proceedings, is going to settle up using estate. The property owner has passed away, and the representative of the estate is working with your prosecutor, Dan Posen, to make this whole. So it's the remaining 2 properties owned by one property owner that we'll have to seek the reimbursement from.
okay.
So Jeff,
And
what's the
what do we-
total amount of the additional? Is that the 17,632?
Let me take a quick look at it.
I think the
I
amount.
think we had allocated, $30,000 for one of the larger vaults and half that for 2 of the smaller ones.
I believe the difference we were discussing was $3,791.41, which was not available previously.
Okay, so that's the delta and the change order actual to.
Yes.
So is this
Okay.
is this just a typo because it says we're increase of interfund transfers, $3,971.41, and then it says,
No.
and increase appropriated fund balance, $3,791.41. So is that just a flipping of the numbers?
Got transposed.
Yeah, it looks like a transpose, yes.
Okay, so I picked the higher number?
To make sure, yes,
Yeah, then
please.
you could,
Yep.
okay. So, you see what we're talking about in the next, in the second to last paragraph?
It makes sense. This guy paid.
The 3791 is there
and then
twice, but the other
3971.
one's
I
only
think
there once.
Total amount was never,
Okay.
So we have this right, Lauralee?
Let's just do up to the 39, and I will only transfer what needs to be transferred.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to execute a change order for the Main Street Sidewalks Improvement Project for the stabilization of vaults located beneath the sidewalks of 97, 117, and 135 Main Street, and authorize additional funding in the amount of $3,971.41? Trustee Galen, second. Trustee Rosenberg. That passes unanimously. Action item number 7, is there a motion to approve a second quarter budget transfer as recommended by the treasurer and department heads? And we have the amounts of the transfers laid out to us, and we have a memo from the village treasurer dated December 1st, 2023. So is there a motion to approve the following budget transfers? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Rosen Asher, that passes unanimously. Action item number 8, is there a motion to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Rosenberg, all in favor, that passes unanimously. Okay, we're done. Trustee Galen, do you have any reports?
The Downtown Committee had a fantastic end-of-year meeting. They are very excited about continuing to work with the village on their proposal for increased trash and recycling receptacles across the village. They have some other great ideas they want to bring to the rec department for more programming to bring people to the downtown in the coming year. And we also had a joint, I would say, walk with the traffic and downtown initiatives with our village administrator and the police chief and other members of the police to talk about some safety issues that had been brought up in previous trustee meetings to try to just get a sense on the ground of what some improvements could be to the downtown for pedestrian safety and vehicular safety. And we're excited to get the ball rolling on some of those.
Thank you. Trustee Rosenberg.
Yeah, so everybody should know that the large Route 9 corridor program at the state level that's been under discussion in one form or another for several years now, is moving forward, and that Administrator Emuter and Donna Cassell and I will be attending the first meeting of what I never remember exactly what it's called. It's the TPC, the Transportation Planning Committee.
Sounds good.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
You got
thank you,
it.
Rob. That is happening on Thursday, and one of the goals articulated by the advisory committee that is advising all of the village officials who are participating in this project is to use a portion of this meeting to develop a mission statement so that the villages are heard on what we need and not sort of told what we're going to get as part of this process. So that's an important meeting coming up on Thursday. That's enough of me.
Trustee Taylor.
Sustainable Dobbs is in the process of working with the village. Really appreciate all the efforts that the village staff has put forth to help us remain in bronze status and move towards silver status. And that's been an ongoing effort, so thank you.
Trustee Patino.
Just an update on Gould Park. Work's going along according to schedule so far. Just want residents to know that we are not removing or doing anything to the playground. I've got a number of questions about that. The sidewalk has been installed and across Washington Avenue to connect Virginia. So I'd like to be nice. People are going to start using that. Rob, any updates on the schedule for the Storm Street?
I have it all here.
Oh, you have that? So we have our projects going along well. It seems like one half of the project, one side of the street has been done. They've been working, excavating today on the other side. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'll read it. It says, "This project is moving along very quickly.
Oh, all right.
The contractor, Palladino Concrete Creations, has completed the sidewalk bump outs on the south side of Ashford Avenue and Grandview Avenue, and have moved on to working on the north side of Ashford Avenue at Storm Street." And I think, Rob, you're confident that it's going to be done?
I was told that it should be done in the next 2 weeks, and then I think it's just signage after that. So it should be open in a
So
few weeks.
60 days became basically 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's hope.
I
Let's
wanted
not
them in
say-
and out of there.
Yeah.
And they're going to double it.
Not so
Sounds moving.
Not so much expediting cost
Yes,
extra.
it's like incentive, disincentive there.
Trustee Rosen Asher.
I don't really have much. I just want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for enthusiastically sending out information about the survey for the DIG grant, and we have had almost 500 responses so far, which is excellent. And the more we get, the more accurate, the information will be. So we're still encouraging people to do that. And the Human Rights and Diversity Committee is just, I think they're having a meeting with you this week or next week.
Yeah, we were trying to organize it as soon as
Right.
possible. It's hard to get the schedules
So-
together.
Right, so there'll be more news on that after the
spoke to
meeting.
June today.
And that's it. Happy holidays.
Okay, you want to go back to?
I did have an announcement, I forgot, but the Youth Services Council ran the 11th Annual Holiday Hustle on Sunday, led by Trustee Patino on his bike as Santa Claus. But it was the most people they ever had. I think it was 675 people ran the race, and I don't think that includes the reindeer run, which was the little kids, and that was like 175. And so Justin Kamke and the PBA do a lot to support that race as well, and all the money goes to help, families in need during the holidays, so.
We want to
You ran.
thank Trustee Sullivan
I did
for
run.
running. She, I think that-
Slowly, but I ran
She
it.
did it in 28 minutes.
Yeah.
I did say if she finished it, I would maybe do it next year, but she did finish it, but we'll see.
So now the maybe comes into
I
play.
finish it every year, so challenge accepted, Mayor.
And we also want to thank the
Mayor in
Kabbat for a
costume?
wonderful Hanukkah celebration on Sunday. It was really fabulous. I still have my glitter dreidel on my arm, so.
Yes, I wanted to thank Rabbi Benji for a wonderful experience, and he was very welcoming. Next time, please don't do a 7-foot high menorah, so maybe next time I could reach the
For the mayor.
highest candle. It was
Reach
very
the
embarrassing. It was very embarrassing for me,
great.
so, let's work on, maybe if I would have talked a little longer, it would have melted a little bit more, and I could have made it. So I want to thank him for that and the whole community for that. I want to make an announcement that thanks to the efforts of primarily Janet and Matthew from the Sustainability Committee, Sustainable Dobbs, is that what they're called now, right? We did receive a Building Bridges Award, which is presented by the Hudson Valley Regional Council to the Village of Dobbs Ferry for demonstrating a significant commitment to collaboration and partnership in the Mid-Hudson region. So I want to thank them for their efforts and moving forward on this. So thank you very much, and I'm going to pass this down to Rob, who could hang it up
On the award
his office.
shelf.
Display it proudly.
So I do have some updates on ongoing projects. As we've heard, Ashford Avenue project is moving along very quickly. The Gould Park improvements, I think Trustee Patino touched upon it, but I have a little bit more information. Village department heads, officials, and consultants are meeting on the site weekly with the contractor to ensure that the project is kept on schedule. The contractor has completed the ADA curb cuts on Ashford Avenue and Washington Avenue to allow for safe passage on the opposite side of Ashford Avenue while the sidewalk adjacent to Gould Park is closed. So I think that was really important to have that safe area set up for that.
Yes.
The contractor has demolished the sidewalk adjacent to the park and installed some new curbing along Ashford Avenue in preparation to pour the sidewalk early next week, so that's moving along. And the stone wall and drainer improvements have been installed in the pool area. I think the stone wall, from what I saw of it, looked fantastic. I mean, it was really well done. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we have good weather for that. Regarding the Cedar Street Broadway Con Ed work, Con Ed has reached out to the village to discuss upgrading a pressure valve under the sidewalk in front of 389 Broadway. Due to the ongoing drainage and paving work that is occurring on Broadway from Yonkers to Tarrytown, New York State has requested that any utility project regarding Broadway be completed before the state paves Broadway. We are expecting to start this project sometime in the next 2 weeks, and additional information regarding traffic pattern changes will be shared when it becomes available. We understand that this construction may cause temporary inconveniences, and we appreciate your patience while we work to enhance the overall safety and well-being of our community. If you have any questions, call Steve Trezza at the Department of Public.
And his cell phone number is?
Our Con Ed representative on the ground.
Address?
I do have some announcements. As Trustee Rosen-Asher said, the DIG survey can be found on the front page of the village website. I want to remind people, and this is not anything based on weather forecasts, but it's a snow removal reminder that homeowners' responsibility to clear snow. It is the homeowner's responsibility to clear snow from all sidewalks adjacent to their property. So please make sure you get out there and make it safe for everyone. The Dobbs Ferry Senior Citizens Holiday Party is Tuesday, December 19th, from 11 to 1 at Embassy Center. It's funny, I was at a restaurant last week, and I ran into the Ardsley Senior Citizens holiday party while I was out there, so that was interesting. The Embassy Center will be closed on December 22nd through December 25th. As an update on that, Rob, I think we finished one of the floors.
The hallway floor is complete. We're looking into coating it because it is a brand-new floor. And the second part, I think in the next day or two, they're going to be completing the other room with the fireplace. I forget the name of the room.
The lounge.
The lounge. So that should be done in the next day or two as well, plus the other lengthy punch list items that we went through. So they're making good progress.
Right, so I'm looking forward to seeing it on December 19th. That'll be great. The Firehouse Santa Run will be December 17th, starting at noon. The Rec Department is accepting letters to Santa until Friday, December 15th. HEAP, the Home Energy Assistance Program, opened on November 1st. Applications are on the county website. The county is offering free bus rides from December 16th through December 31st, which also reminds me that we're offering free parking at 99 Cedar Street until the end of the year. Free rabies clinics for dogs, cats, and ferrets on Saturday, December 16th, from 10 to 3 at Paws Crossed Animal Rescue at Elmsford. Free flu and COVID vaccines are available. You sign up at the Westchester County website, and Toys for Tots. Do you want to talk about that, Liz, or should I?
So we have a collection bin on the first floor, just outside the police station, as well as upstairs in the clerk's office. We'll be collecting at those locations until December 14th, which is this Thursday. After that, collections will continue at the Embassy Center until December 20th. You can mail any gifts in to my attention at Village Hall, 112 Main Street, Dobbs Ferry, New York, 10522. Or you can bring in a new unwrapped toy. And I want to thank everybody for their generosity. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, for all of your efforts in that. Is there a motion to close tonight's meeting? Trustee Rosen Asher, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor. Meeting is hereby adjourned.
Columbia, here I come.